Yeah, I found out some new things about myself. Apparently, I'm gay. Apparently, I hate women, and apparently, I've been a fake therapist for the last 10 years. Nah, I think it's funny. I'm actually a real therapist. I actually did get a master's. I actually did get my license. I still have one as of now. I know some of y'all are looking really hard to see if how I can lose that, and maybe lose my job, or maybe lose my credentials in some way. But in order to lose it, that means I must have had it. So yeah, as of now, I still have it. But now I've been rocking in the space of mental health for a little over a decade. Worked for prisons, for schools, and now for the largest mental health nonprofit in the city of Philadelphia.
Excellent, man. Excellent resume, man. And it's sad that people are coming to destroy you when you're simply just trying to speak the truth.
Hmm.
And I think what people fear mostly uh, is that your truths or your position is coming from expertise, not just the typical opinion that most people have in this space. Your position is actually coming from, it's backed by studies. You have your own uh, realm of material that you can gather a lot of these points and substantiate from, rather than just what everybody else typically do, just jump on Google. Now you
Hmm.
actually out here in the trenches dealing with hundreds and hundreds of people in the space that have these issues.
Yeah, yeah. It is what it is. I knew I've lived. I mean, I'm on the internet like everybody else, so I've seen what happens whenever someone speaks out for good or bad reasons. I know that there's going to be two camps: those that huddle behind you and say we like what this message is, and then those who viscerally want to react poorly to it. In this scenario, I have a few agendas in mind, and things that I haven't said to my audience yet on my platform. But when I do, I'll let people know a lot more of what I'm trying to do and why. But the main focus is getting men and women, in each of us, to better understand each other, and to learn things that potentially we didn't really realize.
I appreciate that. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it because I don't like to hold up. You know what I'm saying? Well, I got some questions for you,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna go ahead and start throwing them. We're gonna jump into masculinity and double standards. So my
Okay.
question to you is, and we're talking about toxic masculinity. Why
Mhm.
is it why is it socially acceptable for women to shame toxic masculinity, but not for men to challenge toxic femininity?
Mm. So for starters, I actually will say one of my main reasons for doing this is to take back control of our lexicon and our language and our words and our speech. I think that there's been a group that's been pretty nefarious and very effective of being able to control what we're allowed to say publicly in workspaces and just even amongst our friends and family. The starting point, this concept of toxic masculinity and toxic femininity, it does not exist, and I'm rocking against that concept because it's an oxymoron. In order for something to be masculine and in order for something to be feminine, these are considered positive attributes. In order to protect, in order to provide, in order to nurture, and in order to care, those are the signs, and reflections of somebody that's being masculine and or being feminine. These are positive things. So individuals that will take something that is positive and call it a toxic version of it, there's no such thing. If anything, that's like saying a stupid genius. Like either they're stupid or they're a genius. Toxic is just what human beings can be, men or women. But when they're being toxic, they're not being masculine. When they're being toxic, they're not being feminine. So just even that concept alone is like, I'm not buying that narrative no more. I'm not buying that lexicon. I'm not using those words. Toxic masculinity and toxic femininity do not exist. They do not go hand in hand. Now, if you're asking why is it socially acceptable for people to point out men's bad behaviors versus why it is that it seems like we can't challenge women's bad behaviors, well, the starting point is because the extreme third and fourth wing feminists pretty much have been running the zeitgeist of society for quite a while in almost every major area of influence.
What is
School.
that zeitgeist? What does that mean?
Actually, I'll use a better word. They are running they've pretty much built the mental matrix of what we're allowed to do in society, what we're allowed to say, what we're allowed to do, how we're allowed to feel, and even what we're allowed to believe in. So the third and fourth wing feminists have become so powerful and so effective. Whenever people point out things that women are doing that's wrong, they already have their go-to words to kind of shut you down, shame you. And if that's not enough, they'll go through the long list of things. You'll start recognizing the pattern. They'll start with calling you a misogynist. They'll start coming for your sexuality. Then they'll start coming for your relationship, if you have one. Then they'll start trying to go in your past and see who you've been with and to see if they could potentially expose you. Then if that's not enough to shut you down, then they want to find out what your credentials are. Then they're going to try to destabilize you in terms of economically. And the hope and goal is until you believe what we believe and say what we say, we will do all we can to break you until you fall back in line of submission. Their view is very simple. They've shifted from believing that the patriarchy was something that centered primarily around men. It was male centered. And they moved men out of the center. And instead of saying, you know what, maybe there's space in the center for both of us, they said, no, 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 no. Now it's our turn. We want things to be centered around female viewpoints, female orientation, female styles of communication, and female understandings of how to view these things. When you live in a functional cultural matriarchy like that, whenever you point out anything that women are doing wrong, now the impulse is not they could actually be doing something wrong. The impulse is he hates women. So I'm trying to get the audience to now to start to catch what's been going on and what's been dominating our fields for the last 2 generations. It was creeping in the college levels, and it's seeped all the way down to the elementary levels. It's in the HR departments. It's everywhere. We're so deep in it that it's to the point of almost like trying to see air. It is everywhere. So my goal is actually not to hate women or to prop men and say men need to be back in the center role. My job is actually to get us to a place where we can appropriately identify good and bad behaviors within both sexes and not allow those that only want to focus on things being negative that exists within the male population. I'm one of those people that's like, now we got to get somewhere back in the middle, because if we swing from everything's about men to now everything's about women, the goal of correcting this stuff is not to swing back to everything's about men again. My belief is that that issue is probably how we ended up with this issue. So my lens is there is toxic men, there is toxic women. And if and when you point it out, people try to trick you into saying, well, you can't say that because do you hate women? Or are you misogynist? Or so women aren't allowed to this? Or no. Either what you're doing is right or wrong. And your gender is secondary to what the primary issue is. And leave it at that. And if they won't reconcile that, if they won't accept that, you run as far as you can away from people like that. And there are men and women that espouse that form of feminism where women are now central, where women are now held to a level where they're beyond reproach and can't be corrected. I'm basically shaking the paradigm and kind of messing with the algorithm a little bit in hopes to kind of get us to a much more balanced view.